My name is Lora Cecere, and I'm the founder of Supply Chain Insights, and I'm so excited today to interview the LLamasoft and the Opex teams about the acquisition of Opex Analytics by LLamasoft. I think this could be a game changer, guys, and let's get into it. Razat, I'm going to start with you. If you could give a brief introduction about who you are and LLamasoft and why you've decided to do this.
Sure. At LLamasoft, we've been in business for almost 15 years, and we started off as a supply chain simulation company, leveraging discrete event simulation technologies, stochastic models, evolved into leveraging optimization techniques to get into network optimization, and then built a broader set of capabilities around supply chain design. And in the last 3 to 4 years, we've been investing on a platform to really evolve from that into an enterprise decisioning capability. So that's what we do. We're in just about every part of the world. We work with about 700 customers globally, and across every vertical that has a physical supply chain.
Well, LLamasoft is definitely a leader and a shaker in supply chain, but not a lot of people know Opex Analytics. So, gentlemen, if you could introduce yourself briefly. I know you're the founders. Tell the group a little bit about who is Opex Analytics and what brings you today to talk about this acquisition.
I'm Ganesh, Ramakrishna.
Uh-huh.
Opex Analytics is a company we started in 2013. The core idea around Opex Analytics was to bring the algorithmic technologies around machine learning and optimization to solve business problems. And when we started, we thought that should be enough. But what we learned quickly was the market was not ready to absorb this. So what we ended up adding is a layer of business expertise knowledge, so we can go to market and work with customers, understand their business problems, and then build solutions for them. And over the last couple of years, we've built platform technologies on top of that.
Well, and you've been in the space a long time. I mean, you may have started Opex Analytics in 2013, but I mean, I've had briefings with you for like 2 decades. So give me your perspective. What brings you here to sit in this chair and talk about the acquisition?
Yeah, well, I think it was a journey here. We've always kind of been in the field of analytics, and I think it's now been rebranded AI, and we've sort of seen that evolution. And what got us started with Opex Analytics was this interesting idea of taking these new machine learning algorithms, where we're just kind of new at the time, and marrying up with what we knew about optimization to bring these two together to build new solutions for customers that just weren't possible 10, 15 years ago.
Python, open source, schema on read, lots of cool things are happening in the market. But what does AI mean, and what do you think it means to the future of the space? Or is that?
There are a lot of varying perceptions about what defines AI. The way we think about AI, and both Opex and LLamasoft have had a similar vision around this, is in being able to leverage techniques, various mathematical techniques that help make better and smarter decisions. And so in our world, that translates into leveraging optimization techniques, machine learning techniques, simulation techniques, and of course, an emerging trend towards also experimenting with deep learning techniques, right? So we look at all of those different techniques as an umbrella term for AI. But to your point, at the end of the day, we're in the business of applied AI. What that means is we're looking at business problems that customers and companies around the world in manufacturing, retail, services, et cetera, are dealing with. And then how can we solve those business problems using a combination of these techniques?
Making this transition isn't easy, though, right? One of the shortages in the market are data scientists. A lot of people struggle with how to really put data science to work. So what have you learned at Opex Analytics about cracking that code?
Yeah, so I think when we started, analytics was kind of the umbrella term that Razat had just mentioned, and now the umbrella term is AI. And I like the switch, because the switch means that we went into before and people would say, well, we're doing analytics, and they would just build one report and think they're doing analytics. Now with AI, it sort of ups the game, and companies know they need to have some kind of algorithm making some kind of smart decision. And so this is what we've seen has been the challenge, is how do you go from thinking of the space of AI from just building some report to actually building an algorithm that solves some business problem in an interesting way that you couldn't have before?
So when people are listening to this, right, the Opex customers, the LLamasoft customers, tremendous capabilities here, but many people are struggling, like, how do I engage, right? Because our old definitions of forecasting or price optimization or inventory optimization were really structured by some outdated paradigms. What makes a good customer here, to go about this? Can you give any insights?
Yeah, I think a good customer is willing to look at what they've done in the past and make some changes. And a good customer is willing to think, how can I do what I did manually with an algorithm now? And so I have that mindset. Now they don't have to know how to build that algorithm. This is the capability that we can bring, or know how to deploy it. Again, we can help them do this. But they have to have that mindset to think, how can I really think differently? How can I look at some of these companies that are kind of on the leading edge of digital and be more like them and sort of reinvent sort of how I think about my business?
So I liken it to learn from the past, to unlearn, to rethink.
Yes.
But I've got to learn a new language, right? I've got to learn how to think differently.
That's right.
Any advice about that?
I think the first thing is to build a roadmap on what can be done in your business, and when you build that roadmap, you have to bring the business reality, saying how much change can I impact on my business, and along with how much funding you have for the effort, right? So use the combination of the two to figure out what the roadmap looks like, and then build the organization around it. I think it is important that you build your own capabilities and then support that with partners. I think that's the combination.
So do a step change on the art of the possible. Now, Razat, many partners may be listening to this and saying, are you building a consulting organization? What does this mean for the LLamasoft Partner Network? Because you've been working on building a really robust network.
Absolutely, and partners are very critical to our business. They will continue to be very critical to our business. And in fact, even with Opex, the Opex team has been working with a network of key partners and consulting firms. So we'll be very committed to that. I think our investments are going to be in the underlying platform, right? And our investments are going to be in the data science skill sets that Mike and Ganesh talked about, which include, by the way, optimization and simulation and machine learning. And we will continue to work with partners. We cannot scale the business without the help and close working collaboration with our partners.
So would it be fair to say your goal is not to be a consulting company?
Absolutely not. We never intend to be a consulting firm. We are a technology firm. And actually, Opex has also been a technology firm, right? In investing in the underlying platform, and they are not there doing the work that management consulting firms do. They are co-innovating and building applications with their clients, and that's going to be fundamental to us going forward as well.
Well, let's talk about the Opex Partner Network. What does this mean to them?
Yeah, so we've ended up partnering, and we can, as Razat said, we're not the management consulting types, and so what we do is we kind of plug in and solve the technical problems, so we can help work with partners to help build an application for their client, and then we can also maintain that application ongoing. So we have an infrastructure set up to maintain that application on a long-term basis.
And the great thing is you've got a supply chain background and really focused on value networks, which many of the consultants are needing, right? And the magic of data science plus this domain expertise plus the platform. So in the market today, we've got a lot of buzzwords: AI, pattern recognition, cognitive computing, ontologies, high dimension, deep learning. What does this mean to you in terms of the science of problem solving, of AI, pattern recognition? What do you think this means in terms of a step change in decision support?
I think these new algorithms have just opened up the world of problem solving. And the philosophy we've taken at Opex is we want to hire a broad range of people, not any one specialty. And so any one problem comes, we want to hear from, is deep learning, can deep learning solve this? Can pattern recognition solve this? Is this traditional machine learning? How do we think about all three of these techniques to see which one is best to actually solve this particular problem? So we like this broad expertise where we can draw on and sort of solve problems in very creative and new ways.
How much fun can we have with all these techniques and this culture? One of the things I love about this potential acquisition is many of these techniques grew up in Silicon Valley, and when I go to Silicon Valley, they could care less about supply chain.
That's right.
And I've really been fighting for people that are smart in data science to come and help us with supply chain.
That's right.
What do you think that looks like?
Basically, it's knowing what out of that IP pool, and I live in Silicon Valley, what out of that IP pool is relevant to the problems that we are solving. Right? In enterprise use cases, 90% of the data is structured. It's good. It's not a bad thing. Right? We have some unstructured data too, but how do you leverage the IP coming out of Silicon Valley to solve our problems? That is the hardest part of figuring this out, because the executives are influenced heavily, the media is heavily influenced by what Silicon Valley puts out. right? Which is all about finding cats and dogs in images.
Well, but unstructured data, I mean, 65% of the data in the supply chain is unstructured and not used. 70% of the planning is done on Excel spreadsheets
Yes.
by maverick behavior. Most of the companies are not happy with their current systems. It's a great opportunity for us to change some things. And Razat, I know you've been doing a lot of work on schema on read and pattern recognition at LLamasoft, but this kind of ups the game. What do you think this looks like?
It's really exciting because, obviously, we started with our roots in design, and from there we found that one of the key inputs into making design decisions is demand. And when we delved into, unraveling what does the next generation of demand modeling and demand forecasting look like, because these solutions have been there for 30 plus years, and we've all worked on them, we realized that the new techniques enabled through machine learning, enabled through more of a market sensing outside-in approach, can have huge value. And we've been working through that, and I think what this acquisition brings together is us being able to accelerate down that path of bringing these techniques together. And one thing I'll mention here is it's not only about the algorithms, it's also about the data. And when we work with our data scientists at LLamasoft, and I've talked to some of the folks at Opex, having access to good data, it's sort of like, it's necessary. It's like food. It's nourishment in order for them to be able to drive the insights or to drive the kinds of decisions of the future. And I think that's part of what we'll be able to do is with our broad customer base and with the trend cloud we're developing with market data, right? As you know, we've been developing that. We've got almost 1 million time series now as part of our trend cloud that feeds into our Demand Guru solution. We're going to expand that even further. And with that data set combined with the simulation and optimization techniques that can provide inputs into these self-learning algorithms, I think it can be game changing. But what I will say is we're all early in that evolution.
And I don't think we have all the answers.
We
right?
don't have all the answers. And I think we're going to learn our way through it. The key to that is going to be bringing together really smart people and then having an underlying platform that can be flexible and agile for us to evolve in directions that we're all going to be speculating about.
So let me just give some examples. We've been talking about some things you've been doing with customers, and let's just have a fun time ideating.
Sure.
So I'm working with a client. They've got a negative 22% forecast value add on forecasting, which means that it's going backwards, not forwards.
Yep.
A lot of e-commerce volume. I know Amazon has volatile orders, not really good at forecasting. You've done some great work on that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've worked with some CPG companies looking at how do we forecast what Amazon's going to order, not Amazon's demand. And so Amazon is notoriously volatile in their orders, and CPG companies want to know, like, what should I expect next week so I can start to plan for it. And so it actually turns out to be a pretty hard machine learning problem where you need to really look at all the data sources, test a lot of different models, and come up with how can I have a better prediction that will then help me plan for next week.
So many clients are struggling with compliance costs. This client has $8 million of compliance fees they'll spend this year, and they're projecting it's $15 million next year. They need to use Internet of Things data from on-time delivery. They want to use mapping data, GPS data to say, yes, we were there on time. They want to look at root cause analysis of order shorts. Yep. How can you help them?
Yeah, so this is a great example of, I think the traditional way would be like, oh, if we just had visibility, we would solve this particular problem. But visibility doesn't help you actually solve the problem. What you can now use is look at all the data streams you just mentioned and start to pull all those together to understand and do some deep algorithms to figure out what was the root cause. And what's interesting about the root cause, you can look both backwards to figure out what did happen, and then once you know that, you can look forward and say what is going to happen and sort of prevent the problem from happening in the first place.
And answer the questions you're not smart enough to ask in the beginning, right?
That's right.
And one of the issues is we've gone backwards, not forward, on critical elements like sales and operations planning because we're not able to bring that modeling to visualize for supply chain leaders the trade-offs. So I'm just sitting here thinking about what you can do with the digital twin to help S&OP. Your thoughts there, Razat?
Yeah, Laura, as you know, this has been a big area of investment for us in really being able to bring that digital twin to life, right? And being able to get the organization, get the enterprise to be able to see what's going on. So there's obviously a descriptive piece to that. To Mike's point, there's a diagnostic piece based on what's happened, but then there's a predictive piece on what's going to happen, and then bringing all of those different elements together to figure out what should be the prescriptive piece of this, and that's where the decision making comes into place, right? I think the days of big monolithic S&OP or other enterprise systems that take 18 months to implement are over. I think there's a lot of fatigue in organizations around those, and that's where I think there is some heavy lifting to be done to create the digital twin. But once you have that, and with the platform that Opex and LLamasoft are going to bring together, we'll be able to be very agile and have a lot of speed in building these micro apps that solve specific problems, that bring specific insights, that help you make specific decisions, as opposed to large monolithic solutions of which you only end up using less than 20%.
So I'm a first generation supply chain pioneer, right? When we were regional and we weren't global, and I think about the global supply chain challenges, right? Whether it's tax and tariff, it's Brexit, it's corporate social responsibility, slow steaming, and I'm thinking about using data differently, right? Whether it's drones flying over the ports and telling us what those patterns are, or whether or not we're sensing what's happening on rail containers and doing much more work around getting things to customers on time. Any thoughts there about how you solve those problems?
Yeah, so we've kind of thought of, what's a new set of algorithms? What do they do? And the new set of algorithms can help you read, see, and hear. And so this is kind of what deep learning can do for you. So can you see what's going on at the port and look for safety problems or other kind of violations? Can you read reports that you couldn't read before and get information off a PDF that you can now take advantage of? Especially the global supply chain, we can't expect all that data to be structured. So taking advantage of those algorithms will be very helpful in the future.
So another example of that is we worked with a big quick serve restaurant company, and they had a lot of compliance data across 10,000 suppliers, and they have a lot of audit data. How do you use NLP to read all the information from the audit data and translate that into a clear dashboard, in this case, for executives to understand what are the spots in the supply chain that are high risk?
So a lot of people are investing in control towers, and I'm like, okay, what are you trying to control and where are your insights, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think that you bring both, right? Controlling to outcomes and driving new insights, And, let's talk about price, because we've always forecasted volume, but we're not good at price and we're not good at managing lift. How do you see helping people with price demand planning? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so traditionally, right, we've just kind of looked at the cost, and now a lot of algorithms are available, so you can start to look for on the front side and say, what should we be pricing? And think about the pricing dynamically to look at the price relative to my capacity. And then you can start to think about how do you adjust your price given what capacity you may or may not have.
So I have big expectations around this orchestration element that's possible, right? Whether it's demand orchestration to purchasing or to the management of contract manufacturers. We're not good at orchestrating price decisions.
Yeah, I mean, pricing in many ways, Laura, in my experience, is an under-leveraged demand shaping lever, right? And I think based on some of the work that Opex has done and some of the work we're doing at LLamasoft on the demand side, I think bringing those elements together can be really game-changing and rethinking the way we use pricing as a demand shaping lever. So we're not just talking about predicting, but then we're talking about shaping, and that's where the decision making comes into place.
And that's where the value comes to the,
that's right.
top line. Now there's a lot of customer focus on digital innovation. And a lot of teams that I work with have chief digital officers or digital transformation initiatives. What could this mean to the company that's sitting out there saying, I don't want to do things the old way, I want to redefine my business? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think they can see like an artist. Look at the companies like Stitch Fix and Instacart. Stitch Fix is fundamentally changing the way retail is done, and the way we see it is they've built a company around an algorithm. Traditionally, companies were built around a process, and that's fair, but the new generation company like Stitch Fix or Instacart, right, in their respective industries are building a company around the power of algorithms. So if you talk to Katrina Lake, she would openly say that she's built that company around the power of a recommendation engine, which all we know is like an AI recommendation engine.
So whether it's an interest graph or whether it's a new business model, we have the ability to not just talk about old-fashioned supply chain, but to talk about new business models, right, Razat?
That's exactly right. And if you look at the way the enterprise has evolved, I think a lot of companies have done a lot of good work within individual functional silos, and we've optimized those over the years. Could be sourcing, could be production, manufacturing, could be distribution, transportation, logistics, sales, finance, marketing. I think the opportunity exists now to really think about how can we leverage data, how can we leverage these algorithms and these insights to drive the next wave of transformation. We could call them digital transformation across the enterprise, across these functional silos. I think that's where the big opportunity resides, and the foundation to that requires a digital twin of your enterprise, right? Because with that digital representation, then you can do experimentation. You can create scenarios of the future. You can leverage data and algorithms to see what the possibilities may be. But it requires a fundamentally different approach to thinking about operating models like the ones that Ganesh is talking about.
Well, and I'm hoping it isn't the supply chain guy that calls you, but it's across the organization around digital transformation and the art of the possible. Because I don't think we can think about business in the old-fashioned way. How about your thoughts?
Yeah, we're looking at the whole enterprise, and we think about how does this AI movement impact it, and it goes across everything. It's not just supply chain, but it's every different function, and how do you look across that and come up with algorithms that help the whole enterprise?
So not what we have today, but what it could be, and imagining what we could do for the customer, whether it's food for wellness or custom drugs or selling rides, not automobiles, or redefining aircraft. It's really exciting. So let's just wrap up here. What does this mean for customers 3 years from now? Who wants to take it first?
Yeah, so I think 3 years from now, I'm hoping customers will have unlocked new value that we can't even anticipate today, and I think this new organization will help them unlock that and go through that journey of figuring out what does 3 years from now look like.
Was that?
I think customers will have the ability to make decisions a lot faster in a much smarter way, and to be able to really transform and pivot their operating models, but be able to do that with a data-driven and insight-driven approach.
Insight-driven, right?
Yes.
People can't get to data today, they can't get to insights. What do you think happens 2 to 3 years from now?
2 to 3 years from now, I think the culture would be set. I think companies would have figured out that what it takes to build and deploy AI algorithms in their business. I think that should be figured out. They would also know who their partners are, who are they going to work with, that they're going to scale their businesses, and hopefully it's us.
Okay, empower newness in the right way to drive value. So it's my hope that the great and deep domain expertise on this stage redefines decision support and helps us to solve the hard problems that are not currently being addressed in supply chain. Congratulations, gentlemen. All the best.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.